And there we go. Hi, this is Jenny Smith. I'm here with Christy Lusk. Through the magic of the internet, she's talking to us today from the area of Austin, Texas. And Christy is going to share with us today some information about lesson planning. Specifically, she has a fantastic method that she uses for organizing and structuring her lessons that helps her stay on track with timing and make adjustments on the fly during seminary. Hi, Christy, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great. Even though it's a little cold here in Virginia, it's about, I think we've broken 30 degrees now. We're in kind of a cold snap, I guess probably like everywhere.
Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about your class and about your makeup, about your students that you teach there in Texas.
Very good. So I am teaching this year and it's my first year. So I am by far not expert in this at all, but I've been loving seminary. I've taught for a lot before, but mostly just adults and primary. And so this has been really fun to do. I teach in a home and we have 18 kids and I teach with a couple of ladies. And so we switch off and it's been really good. I've been really loving it. I have really great class too.
Great, good. And you were mentioning that you switch classes. Some team teachers teach in modules, but you're rotating every other day. Is that how you're handling your lessons?
We do. I teach Tuesdays and Fridays, and my partner that is there every day, that is the person that we do in our home, she teaches on Mondays and Thursdays. And then we have a friend or a seminary teacher also that teaches on Wednesday. She does our flex time for the kids who do sports, and so she teaches really early. And also, I forgot to mention that we teach at 7:30, which is like heavenly. It's a heavenly time, so it's just perfect.
Wow,
so it's very different.
Oh my gosh, seminary teachers all over are turning
totally
green
jealous, I'm
right
sure.
Now.
Yeah, it's been wonderful, like really great, because they're awake and alert and ready for the day, and then they just go right on to to school. So it's like a perfect time. It is challenging sometimes because they end up needing to skip sometimes for going to tutorials or whatever, but so it kind of makes for a movement in our classroom when some of our kids leave and stuff. So, but it's really good. I'm loving it.
Well, seminary is very rewarding. What are the ages of your kids? Do you have all freshmen, or do you teach a variety?
Yeah, no, they're all high school age. So we just teach our ward, and so we have freshmen through senior.
Awesome. It sounds like you have a great group. Boys, girls, do you have a majority?
All sorts. They're pretty much half and half. So okay. It's good. And pretty much all age groups. So
well, that's good. It's fun. It's good to be able to rely on the seniors to kind of ride herd on the freshmen, I think, when things go sideways, I think. Well, tell us a little bit about your lesson planning. How did you develop your particular method of lesson organization?
Partly it's just time blocking my lesson. So I did do business stuff before, just a business out of my home, and had to figure out how to get everything done, including being a mom, like just everything. And so partly that's just where it came from, is organization. I also had a lot of health medical stuff, and so I get headaches, and to be able to stay on track and not lose where I'm at, I just started time blocking all my lessons from primary, then teaching adults. I taught adults for a bit, and so that was my way of being able to adjust and keep track of where I was at. And if I had a fuzzy head, then it was able to just keep me on board with what I was doing. So that's really the main reason.
That's super great. I mean, I don't have any, I don't get migraines, and I still get a fuzzy head when I'm teaching. There's so many factors to consider. So this
It's
is
crazy.
yeah, it is crazy. And this is a great, I think what you've developed is a really great way to help a teacher stay on track um, during a lesson, especially if you've got something distracting you or some health
Yeah.
situation that's bothering you. This is really great.
Well,
What else can you tell us?
well, also too, what I have found is that my lessons never go quite the way I envision them. And so in the beginning, when I was first teaching, I had so much, like I was so excited. I had so much to share the kids and so much to teach about. And I way over prepared. And that's when I realized, okay, I need to like pull back and really figure out timing wise, because I was trying to rush too much to get so much in, and transitions with seminary is just like transitions with 7-year-olds, and it takes a long time, you know, when we move from one thing to another and getting everybody back on track or settled down or reverent again, and different things like that. And so it was just good to be able to adjust. And so if something went longer, or if something was extra great and we just stayed on top of it, it helped me to realize, okay, this lesson, this video that I wanted to share is 6 minutes, and so I'm going to have to use this portion of it because I really think this portion is great, or just cut it out altogether. And it also let me figure out just exactly where I was at in my lesson plan, because I did want to leave my 7 to 10 minutes at the end, or 5 minutes at the end, or whatever, to bear my testimony, to really go over the one thing that I wanted them to take away, and then to bring back the spirit, or to reinforce, I guess, what the spirit was trying to teach through the lesson. So.
Well, I think that's really a great thing to say, because your lesson planning not only keeps you on track, but ultimately it's about the students. That organizing your lesson is helping the students be able to retain the information that you've gone through all the trouble to prepare and try to teach them, by summarizing the lesson at the end. I think that's really fantastic. Do you, I know that you have a sample lesson plan. Are you ready to pull that up and
You
share it
want me
with
to?
us?
Yeah, I can do that real quick.
It takes just a second to, for her to pull up her
Share.
screen for sharing.
Sorry, because I get this doe eye look where I'm not really focused on you.
No, no,
Okay.
you were, it's
Are you
coming. There
able
it
to see it?
goes. Yay.
All right. So this is my lesson plan that Jenny saw as I shared it. It is, whoops, it's like scrolling. So it's just time blocking is really what it is. And it takes me about 10 extra minutes when I do this, just to make sure everything is good. And so it does take a little bit of extra time, but at the same time, it also frees up so much, because I have basically a cut and paste thing I can drop into my Google Docs, and it gives me an outline to start off with, and it just makes it so much easier. So when I first start out in the lesson, I figure out, I've got some really super great advice of figuring out what my kids are going to do, and then what I'm going to testify of. And so depending on what it is we're going to do that day will depend on how much time this class theater was 20 minutes, because it was a really good portion of our lesson. But then when we went to discussion, it was such a powerful thing to have these discussion cards, and just so that everybody knew what it was that they were going to be talking about. And then at the end, I was able to just close with what I was trying to teach and some experiences that I had. So that's really all it is.
Well, that's really great. I mean, how do you go about, you said you've got kind of a template. Like how does your template fit in with with this particular lesson plan? It looks like you had an attention getter, and we used to call them look fors.
Okay.
When you were training in seminary, they called them look fors, something to look
Okay.
for when you're watching a video.
Okay.
How are you organizing this material?
Um, I just, so the way I prepare my lessons is simply by listening to the scripture blocks that I'm supposed to do, and then listening to the lesson and just kind of marinating on that actually, and just kind of seeing what it is that the Spirit wants me to teach and what the Spirit wants me to focus on. And so if it's 3 blocks, then we go and do an activity with 3 blocks and scripture blocks. Or if it's just, I don't know, you know what I mean? You just kind of plug it in there, and then, sorry, that didn't make sense. I plug in what I'm going to do with my kids, like the format that we're going to do as far as teaching, and whether it's them learning a passage and then teaching it to their peers, or if we're going to dive into the scriptures and dig deep in and do a lot of cross-referencing, or whether or not we're going to do class theater like we did this time, or a game, or whatever it is. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thank you. How do you go about assigning a time to each of these activities? I see that you've got, like here, you've got 5-minute closing, you got a sharing time for 5 minutes, your discussion. How are you estimating how long each lesson segment is going to take?
Practice, I think, is really what it is. The other is what the time is available. So I have a 6-minute video. I know that my time has to be able to fit everything. And so that's really what it is like, okay, I can devote 20 minutes to this class theater, and I want to do discussions, and so it just is all fitting in. I know, let me stop sharing this and I'll share my other really fast. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
My
We're
mouse is just lovely today. I want to do what I want it to do. All right. So I think this is my, okay, so this is just this is just quickly my like drop and paste into. And so depending on like this portion right here, can you see my mouse wiggling? I don't know.
I can see it, yes.
Okay, depending on how much time I want to devote to what it is that we're going to do will depend on everything else. That's really all it is. And I definitely try to keep my 3 minutes here and my 1 minute here. That's always. And then I try also to keep a time period where if I feel like the class is able to share, like just asking questions and stuff. And so that's kind of what it is. I can drop and paste this into our comments later too, so that if anybody wants to use it, then they can.
Do I want to get a copy of it. You know, I'm taking an instructional design class right now for my master's degree. And this material, I mean, you said you didn't have any professional teaching experience, but you have exactly matched the lesson planning that's in my instructional design class as a best practice for teaching. And so it's pre-instructional activities, like what you're doing with your passing out the cards, introducing the material, kind of an attention getter, stating the lesson objective. Then you're presenting the content, giving the students an opportunity to practice with their sharing, and then assessing them, you know, just asking a little question, following up with your challenges at the end. And then I saw at the very bottom, you didn't even point it out, but you said that you're following up and remind. And for those teachers who don't know what remind is a, I don't know, a private group messaging system that keeps text messages text numbers and email addresses private from the instructors so that it's safe. It's a safe way for teachers to communicate directly with students without any private information being released to the teacher. And so you're following up and remind, which is the transfer of learning. So you're doing exactly what a professional teacher would do. Go ahead.
Well, cool. I don't do that all the time. The remind is not all the time. I don't want them to like, oh, Sister Lusk is sending me more stuff. And so that's just when I really, really want to highlight something that I wasn't able to share. Does that make sense?
Sure.
So, but yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah, this is fantastic information. I think that this will be really helpful for other teachers to be able to share, or to be able to see what you're doing and to apply it, and to understand that a first-year teacher can come up with this type of lesson structure to be able to time lessons so that students can leave on time, get to the bus or get to their vehicles on time so that they can go to school on time. This is a really great system. You've done a great job here.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Now, at the end of these, I always ask 2 questions. And I always say, can you share an experience when you learned something? Since you're a first-year teacher, maybe you haven't had any bad experiences teaching seminary yet, but think about a time when you did something that didn't work in seminary and tell us what you learned from it. And then tell us something that worked really well for you in seminary and what you learned from that.
Okay. So there's one that does come to mind. And I find it really, really fascinating. Like, this is a new experience for me, teaching so closely with the Spirit, if that makes any sense, being guided by the Spirit. And I had one lesson that was just not coming together for me. And it was hard. Like, I was trying, I was doing all I could. I was researching, and you guys are amazing. You have so many ideas on this Facebook group, and I constantly am in this Facebook group getting ideas and letting the Spirit kind of tell me what to do as far as my lessons go. But this one, I was just not able to really pull it together, and I didn't know. And so I woke up at like 2 a.m. and my lesson plan just like was laid out for me. And it was pretty amazing. And I can't remember even what lesson it was, but it was wonderful. And it was basically a very scary lesson for me because I couldn't use this plan. It was, let's read this scripture block. Let's tell me what stands out to you to the kids. We write it on the board, and that's what we teach from. It's like we like figure out what it is that we're going to do. And so that was super scary for me because I couldn't plan anything. And so we did that, and we wrote some really great insights that the kids had and the things that they pulled out from that scripture block. And then I proceeded, I wanted to highlight this, and I wanted to highlight this, and I forgot all about my board, like with all those great insights on there. And it was a good lesson. We had a great time, but I forgot what it was that I was supposed to teach, and that was go down off that board and talk about what they stood out to them. And afterwards, I felt a little like sad and chastised a little bit for, not doing exactly what I needed to do. And my prayers that night, I felt like it was a great lesson, but it could have been so much more of a lesson because I was following what was laid out for me, and I had forgotten. And it was simply just that I had forgotten. And I wasn't like trying to do anything wrong or different or whatever, but it was just that it wasn't what it could be. So it was interesting learning. It's been interesting learning to really, really dial into the Spirit and to figure out what these kids need. So that's that. And then something that went really good.
Yes.
Is that what you're asking now? Let's see. For me, there are less, the Good Samaritan one did go really good. And I really, really appreciated who posted those questions, the question cards, because I thought that was perfect. Like for that lesson, it was perfect. And we are planning on using them more and more often. It was just pretty cool to pass out those cards and then watch them kind of ponder over that. And then I have several really quiet kids who don't hardly speak at all. And I have a lot of kids who do speak up quite a bit. And it was neat to have some volunteer questions answered, but then going around the room and just not causing an alarm of you need to answer this question or anything. It was just very natural to go around the room and answer questions just in a natural way. And we got all of our really quiet kids to speak up, and that was really good. I thought that was really good.
Well, that's wonderful. I think when you can create a place where students can be vulnerable like that, where even your shy or introverted students can speak up, you've really accomplished something. So I think you're doing great, Christy. You're doing super great.
Thank you.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to share with us before we wrap up today?
Oh, yeah. I wasn't prepared for that one. No, I think really being a seminary teacher is amazing. But I think also understanding that we are just normal, real people and we don't have things all together, and we are just doing our very best to teach by the Spirit and to somewhat entertain the kids while teaching by the Spirit is just important. That it's just normal. You know, I always kind of looked up to seminary teachers and thought that they were these great people who have everything together. And then I became one and realized, no, that's not the way it is. It's just normal people. But being able to walk by the Spirit and feel the Spirit is important, and understanding how to access the Spirit, and then bringing that into your class and understanding that our kids need to be able to find answers in the scriptures and find answers through the opportunities that we give them is important too. So that's it.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that encouragement and testimony. It's been really great to talk to you today, Christy.
Thank you.